Welcome into NHL Tonight. First shift for Thursday, November the 14th, 2024. EJ Radic here alongside Mark Parrish, back for another shift with us.
I love it. Thank you, EJ. Thank you for having me
You don't
back.
have to thank
I didn't
me.
mess it up. I love it.
I don't make the schedule. I mean, we have people here that make the schedules and everything. And, listen, you're one of our key guys. So we want to have you in again. So
Thank you.
It's good to see you. I mean, there's been a lot going on around the National Hockey League. And, the Minnesota Wild have gotten off to a good start this year. We're going to talk about them a little later. But you know what? It's overshadowed, right? Because of the Winnipeg Jets doing all the stuff they've done. And first things first, the Winnipeg Jets, you got to start with them again because they're taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning tonight. It's the second meeting between these two teams. They played back on November the 3rd. Winnipeg overcame a 2-0 deficit in that game, won the game 7-4, a couple of empty netters. Interesting, in that game you had Hellebuck and you had Johansson in goal for Tampa. Tonight, Eric Comrie will be in for Winnipeg, and on the flip side, it'll be big guy Vasilevsky in for Tampa. It's an interesting trip for the Jets right now. They got two coming up with Florida. Any look ahead maybe with the defending champs? It's hard to look past the Tampa Bay Lightning.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, you're always excited. You're always looking ahead when you're going to get the measuring stick. When are you going to get the defending champions, the team that everybody's going to have to beat this year to win it, the Florida Panthers? But like you said, this isn't the Tampa Bay Lightning when I came into the league. This is the Tampa Bay Lightning that have been dominant for a very, very long time, and they're always going to garner attention. Whether they are one of the top teams in the league or not right now, somebody's kind of got to knock them off their pedestal in that division especially, but overall, for anybody to start looking past them. As long as you got that Kucherov and Vasilevsky and Point and
that group.
You still got yourself a real good chance at a trophy.
Yeah, I would say this, though, for the Jets, they do get a little bit of a break because Braden Point is going to be out. He's missing his third consecutive game. He last played, oddly enough, in that game against Winnipeg. He had a 5-game point-scoring streak leading up to that moment, but he's out again. So that's a little bit of an opportunity there, but it's interesting with the goalie change. Let me ask you this. You played on some teams that had the star goalie, clearly the number one guy. Hellebuck, clearly the number one guy. Tonight, it's Comrie. If you're in that room, are you guys revved up a little bit that, like, hey, we got to take care of our guy here tonight, the number two guy, and make sure we play hard in front of him?
Oh, absolutely. And on both ends, you're a little revved up, to be honest with you. You're revved up in your own room. You're like, all right, hey, we're going to keep playing our game. You certainly don't want to get off your game.
Yeah.
But obviously, with a team like them, they're not too concerned about their game falling off. They're going to continue playing their same game. That being said, they're going to want to take care of their guy always. And if you're in Tampa, you're in that other locker room. You flip on the flip side, you get a little excited.
Yeah.
You almost get a little offended sometimes. To be honest with you.
That's right.
Like, you're
why
like,
isn't Helly
really?
playing tonight?
Oh, really? You don't think you need your big guy against us anymore? So that'll rev up Kucherov.
Yeah.
Those guys will get pumped up too, like thinking, oh, you think you can get away with your backup with us, do you?
Yeah. That's a good perspective to look at it. It will be an interesting matchup tonight down there. As I said, when they played in Winnipeg, the Bolts got out to a 2-0 lead, but the Jets were able to rally and win that game. Heck, they're winning just about every game, 15 of the first 16.
Incredible.
Best start we've seen in league history through 16 games. We also got the Edmonton Oilers in action tonight against the Nashville Predators. And how about this, Perry? Connor McDavid entering tonight's game with 999 career points, going for 1,000. You can see here, there's only a handful of people that have gotten there faster than only three really on that list when you think about it. Gretzky, Lemieux, and Bossy. I got to figure Connor McDavid's going to get that point tonight, and that'll be in 658, 659 games. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
That's absolutely correct. That's what's amazing about these guys, the greats. They even surprise you with this. Even it just seems like he got here so fast. There's always been so much to watch with Connor McDavid and so many different storylines and where his point stats, where his numbers are going to be at the end of the year, how many MVPs. He's already getting compared with those guys.
Yeah.
But then when you see the stats come out like that, you're like, it's warranted. That's why we discuss him as one of the greats already, maybe when he hasn't accomplished the ultimate goal, obviously, which is the ultimate goal for all the greats.
Yeah, win that Stanley Cup.
They know they need that
on the resume.
They absolutely need that, and Connor's no different. But man, you look at those stats, absolutely incredible. And I love the plus rating too there.
Yeah.
That's insane. Plus 154. I don't care how many points
and that was
put
not
up.
on good teams.
No, exactly. That was where I was going with that.
Yeah.
Like there was a long time. Edmonton was struggling, and he would put up all those numbers, and he's still up plus 154. That's. Well, what would Liam?
How about Gretzky though? 424 games to 1,000 points. That's more than 2 points a game for your first 424 games.
We were just talking about him in Minnesota, and I was making the point that it is absolutely incredible. I mean, his record, some of his records may be broken. We're going to see the goal scoring record change, which still blows my mind that I say outside. That was an unbreakable.
We thought it
forever.
wasn't going to be, right?
Never going to be touched, right? But we're seeing those. Well, Kirill Kaprizov had a chance to tie his opening game. He had 3 points in a row.
In X amount of games.
Amount of games, and he was one shy of Wayne Gretzky's record of 9.
Wow.
And I was blown away with who he was tied with. Steven Stamkos didn't surprise me too much. Roman Josi.
Really?
Being on that list at 8-2, that blew my mind. But seeing these stats that Wayne's had and seeing them you get a chance to, like I said, I was bring this with Kirill Kaprizov, just to be mentioned in a breath like that, even with a small record that I'm sure Wayne has forgotten about long time ago, probably forgot about it, but just to be in that same breath just tells you how amazing a season Kirill's having.
Yeah, it really does. And I mean, we'll see how Connor does tonight. I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's going to get that 1,000th point against the Nashville team that Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl seem to do very well against the Preds. So I think he gets it tonight. I got to go back to last night because I want to talk to you a little bit about the Leafs because, the Toronto Maple Leafs are always a hot topic, right? They're playing there in the mecca of hockey, so to speak, in Toronto. They had not so good an effort against the Ottawa Senators the night before. They go to Washington, second of a back-to-back. They're losing 3-1 in the third period against a good Capitals team. And then all of a sudden, they turned it up. And it reminded me of what when I was scouting, the old scouts used to say about back-to-backs. And you experienced this as a player, so you could weigh in and give me your thoughts. But they would say either the next day the team would start well and then fade out, or they would start slow and pick up steam. And in this case, the Toronto Maple Leafs started slow, real slow, but picked up steam in the third period, tied it up, and ended up winning it in overtime.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That is you're literally the
Did you
the
experience
two options.
any of that?
Oh yeah. Well, or unfortunately the third option where they just never come back.
Nothing happens. Nothing
it's
good
just
happens.
a flat line.
Yeah, it's bad.
It's a write off of that back to back. But no, he's right. Yeah. And you do hope that it's the latter where you're going to start slow because
at least get better as the game goes on.
You are going to be tired.
Yeah.
Like there's going to be a tired in there somewhere, and you'd rather have that first period where you're going to start a little sluggish, start off slow, and you get stronger and stronger as the game goes on, and pray to God it doesn't go to overtime.
Yeah.
Once that 60 minutes is up, that's the hard line. At least it was for me. But no, the other thing that I've seen about this Toronto team I like in the last couple of years, they're starting to show the heart. They're starting to show some
more resiliency.
Yes, and all this resiliency. So what we were talking about with Winnipeg, so how it goes through pain. You got to go through a lot of pain and anguish, and I know everyone in Toronto will say that they've gone through enough pain and anguish.
Yeah.
But that being said, that doesn't matter. It's the group, and this group right now is learning, and yet some more adversity. Doing this without Austin Matthews makes it even more impressive. It just makes it easier to roll over on those second games when you are a little tired, and especially when you're behind in the third, you kind of can let up and be like, well, boys, we didn't have it. Well, let's just save it. They're not even looking at it that way. They look that they're in every game regardless, and they compete to the end. And got to hand it to Tavares. He's been a big piece of that.
He's had a great start to the season. He's got 9 goals already, including the overtime game winner. And he's hard to deal with in overtime. Take a look here. Most career overtime goals in NHL history. Now, we only had the overtime going back, 20 years or so. Ovi, not surprisingly, and Crosby. What a shock.
Yes.
Those two guys are on there. Marchand, Yager. But there's John Tavares with 18 overtime goals, and that was a beauty the other night. I mean, the puck went down the ice. Logan Thompson, he was in between. He decided not to go out and try to play it. At the end of the day, Tavares was able to corral that puck, came in, and he made a really nice move to score the game winner.
And there's nothing a skilled goal scorer loves than indecision by a goaltender. So when you see that hesitation, especially John Tavares, and let's not forget he was the man for a long, long time. You look at his Islanders career when he first went to Toronto. He's got all that experience of playing in that overtime, and he still has that compete. That he's got that hard nose where he's going to put that shoulder down, drive that far corner, force the goalie to open up a little bit, and just wait for that open, and have the poise to wait for that opening as well. He's not going to get too excited. He's been there, done that. He's got that C on his shoulder for a reason, and he's been working his butt off.
Yeah, let me ask you this too, because like he was the captain of Toronto. They took the C away. They give it to Austin Matthews, right? Like he's in the final year of his contract. They're not certain if they're going to bring him back. I mean, all these things are going on. Again, I lean on your experience. You played in the league. You've had situations, I'm sure, at the end of your contract or things were changing. It seems like he's very focused right now. Does that motivate you? Does that really kind of keep you like really focused on the task at hand day to day to day?
Absolutely 100%, especially when you look at his age. Because then you add in that father time thing too. Like you're looking at the end of my contract. Everyone wants to extend their career as long as possible.
Got to work harder, right?
You've got to work that much harder to keep up with the young guys, to show his character on it, to the leadership, because you take the C away from a kid that's his childhood dream. That hurts.
Yeah.
And he
no matter what you say,
no matter what you say, that is a shot to your pride.
Yeah.
That hurts. You're having trouble sleeping for a couple of nights on that one. But he has handled it absolutely perfectly. He's handled it the right way. Now that the captain's dropped out, he understands now at his age, at the point of his career, that this is another opportunity for him to step up and show what he can do. Not maybe necessarily for Toronto, but maybe for somebody else.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, for him as a kid who grew up, we saw the picture with the pajamas, the whole thing.
Oh, yeah,
right? I mean, to win in Toronto, for those who embrace it, right? There are some people that grow up there that probably don't want to. They'd rather play somewhere else and not have all that headache. But for those who embrace it, I mean, the idea of maybe winning the Stanley Cup for the Toronto Maple Leafs, I mean, that's something that you don't have to buy dinner anywhere ever in Toronto again, right? I mean, you know what I mean? There's like a legacy to that. No. It's like the '94 Rangers in New York, right? We have those guys, that Messier and Leach and that group. Those guys are like, they're locked, they're frozen in those fans' memories. That's what would be like for the Leafs fans if they can get there. So John Tavares probably, he'd like to maybe make it happen this year if he could.
That was my dream in Minnesota.
Yeah.
I grew up being a huge Twins fan. Kent Herbeck was from Bloomington, my hometown. Absolute god. Still a god there for the 87 and 91 World Series. I wanted that so bad. I wanted to be Kent Herbeck for the Minnesota fan base, for the Wild. And so absolutely, Tavares, that dream is still available, or still there for him. And I can imagine that, his goal is to continue on with Toronto and finally achieve that goal, to finally achieve that Stanley Cup in his hometown. That's every little kid's dream.
Yeah. So the Leafs with a big win over the Caps. One other quick note before we get to break. The Colorado Avalanche, the start of the season, a lot of issues, injuries, bad goaltending. All of a sudden, last several games, Georgiev playing better. Rantanen, big night last night, 4 points. He had the hat trick. Avalanche win again, and the Avs are finding their way. I guess that's not a huge surprise.
I can't be the minority thinking, just waiting for it.
Yeah.
Just waiting for it to happen. I mean, especially they're unhealthy, the injuries that they've had to start off with. You mix that with some struggling goaltending that was bound to change. Georgiev's too good of a goaltender to continue playing that way. And obviously, as they get healthier, they get Lehkonen back. Landeskog's back on the ice now.
Hopefully he can get back playing at some point.
Exactly.
Missed him for so long. I mean, we'll see. But
the healthier they get,
Nichushkin coming back Friday.
Nichushkin, the scarier they get, the more. You just keep adding a little more insulation around McKinnon and Makar, and that team who's already terrifying just that alone, even though they're struggling. Yeah. Nobody likes playing Colorado. Nobody wants to play Colorado.
Yeah.
Keep bringing those guys back, and they get more and more terrifying.
Yeah, they are floating up the standings right now, fourth place, moving up the route. So the Colorado Avalanche back in action on Friday night against the Caps. When we get back, it's that time of the week. Yep, Dan Rosen, the Super 16.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this.
We'll see what Dan has in store.
I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah. I got some. There he is. There it is. There it is. A list with a lot of misinformation on it. All right, we'll be back with Rosie on First Shift. It is time for the Super 16 presented by Enterprise, and that means our pal, our buddy, our guy, Dan Rosen from NHL.com. He's got his list. He's checked it twice. We'll see if he's been naughty or nice. All right,
too
Dan,
early for that. Too early for that.
Let's get right to the first four, 16 through 13 on your list. Let's get to it.
All right, 16 through 13. So 16, I got the Boston Bruins. They're in 2-0-1 in their past 3 games. One was to the Ottawa Senators.
Right.
It was a 3-2 loss. So Ottawa's at 15. They also beat the Toronto Maple Leafs 3-0, the Ottawa Senators, and that was after losing to Buffalo and Detroit. The Edmonton Oilers, McDavid's back. McDavid's playing well. The Oilers are getting a couple of wins, so they're in at 14. The Kings, big drop for the Kings. I didn't want to drop them even further. So the Oilers weren't ranked last week. The Kings, even though they struggled, hit a little bit of a snag here. 2 losses in a row. 3 of their past 4, they're at 13.
All right. Well, I mean, I can understand your Bruins Senators thing there. The Oilers surprised me a little bit, but you're right. They've been playing a little bit better of late for sure. So I guess you could make a case for them. And the Kings, it was tough last night because that game against the Avalanche, they're right in the game. It's 2-2, and then Darcy Kemper gets hurt. He has to leave. David Rittich comes in. In the end, they didn't get a lot of pushback offensively in the game. But, the Kings have been like a little bit odd so far. Perry, where are you on the Kings?
Get
more Perry.
I'm also wondering where they're going to be at, too. I mean, I look at them as still finding their identity. I think the playoff losses have messed with them just as much as anything, and they're just trying to figure out who they are just yet. At least that's what it seems like.
Yeah, no Drew Doughty, but they're
and
got to give them credit. Got to give them credit. They're winning.
Yeah, listen, I think they've been good without Drew Doughty, but it's eventually going to catch up with you, right? Like there's only so much Gavrikov can do in replace of a Drew Doughty, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so it catches up with you, and I don't know what their identity is, and maybe that's the biggest issue we see with the law. But you know what? You can lump them in with about 15 teams that way right now, and it's November, and that's
right.
You really can.
You're right.
So
all right. Let's move on to the next 4 clubs here you got. Let's
all
see
right,
what you got.
The next 4, I got the Toronto Maple Leafs. Nice comeback against the Washington Capitals for the Leafs, but of course before that they lost to Ottawa. But the Leafs 4-1 in their past 5 games. The Avalanche, they gotta jump in. Let 3 wins in a row, 4 of 5. The 1 loss is to the Winnipeg Jets, 1-0. Everybody's losing to the Jets, so no shame in that right now. The Vancouver Canucks, they beat Calgary, they beat LA. 4-1 since that 6-0 loss to the New Jersey Devils, and the New York Rangers, who are struggling a little bit, but they drop. I think, AJ, you tell me, like we are in this area with the New York Rangers, right? So you go to games, I go to games. To me, we have a more critical eye at times on the New York Rangers. The fact is that they're 9-4-1, but they have not been playing good hockey. They beat the Detroit Red Wings the other day on the back of Jonathan Quick. Okay, we need to see more. This could be a get right for them right now. I had to drop them, but it's not like the sky is falling. Like I said, they're one of about 15 teams who are dealing with some issues in November.
Yeah, I mean, I would tend to agree with that. I think it's well said by you that we are here and we look at them a little differently. Now, this last week, right, they got their doors blown off by Buffalo. They went to Detroit, and by all accounts, they did not play great, but Jonathan Quick was really good, made nearly 40 saves. They win that game. And then I thought they played a good game against the Jets, but, they're a little too loose still. And then Hellebuck made a number of good saves, so I don't know where you lump that in. So it's almost like a 1-1-1 week for them. I could see if you put the Avalanche ahead of them because the Avs have been playing, I think, better than them lately, but you failed to do that.
I did fail to do that. So, I guess that is a failure on my part that I didn't do it. But, the Avalanche weren't ranked last week. They're starting to play better. They're coming along. The Rangers against the Jets, I thought it was one of their better games, except for 4 or 5 glaring mistakes. And what is Winnipeg doing right now to everybody? When you make a mistake, they are making you pay. That's what they do. They put the hammer on you, and that's exactly why you don't see them in the bottom 8.
Perry, where are you on the Rangers? Because Dan and I do see them more. You see them probably a little bit less.
I see him less, but maybe it's a former Islander. But yeah, I'm.
Well, you don't like him to begin with.
You don't like him anyway.
I'm looking. I was expecting them to have a little more consistency this year. I really was. I thought they were going to take a lot of confidence from last year, from the playoffs. Take another step as an organization, obviously running into a very difficult Florida team that everybody went to, but that's where you learn you learn the hard lessons to get you to the cup that way. So I really thought there was going to be a lot more consistency in that room.
Well, we'll see.
There yet. We'll see if it gets there, but they've been very inconsistent.
All right, let's get to the top 8. What do we got?
Right, top 8. Dallas Stars at number 8, 2-1 since the Global Series. They beat Chicago, they beat Pittsburgh, and of course they lost to Winnipeg like everybody else.
They killed Pittsburgh. I
mean, they killed Pittsburgh. But you know what?
Yeah.
That's not they're just not a very good team right now.
Yeah,
the Pittsburgh Penguins,
true.
right?
No.
They got legends, but they're just not a very good team right now. Vegas 1-1-1 in their past 3. They're there. They're kind of hanging around. You like them. You want to see a little bit more consistency maybe out of them, but still a very good hockey team. The Washington Capitals, didn't love them blowing the game against Toronto late last night. But you know what? Before that, they beat the St. Louis Blues 8-1, right? And they've been better, I think, than we thought. So a little bit of a drop for the Capitals. And the New Jersey Devils jump up. They've been playing really good hockey. The New Jersey Devils beat the Florida Panthers 4-1 to end the Panthers' 7-game winning streak. So the Devils have to jump in, and they're in my top 5.
All right, well, I'm going to take a little issue here with – I think Vegas should be in that 5 hole. I think Vegas has played very well all year. They've had a couple of injuries. Mark Stone was out, missed some time, and, that impacts them. But they still find ways to win. Perry, I like Vegas, they're just hard to deal with, right? They got that big, strong defense, even with Nick Hague on the sidelines. I just think, for me, when I look at teams that I think can win the Stanley Cup this year, it's a short list. They're on it. 100%. So for me, and I know we're doing the power rankings, and, it is week to week, but they're playing pretty well. I would have them at 5.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would have had them.
So you're saying Rosen is wrong?
I am 100% saying Rosen is wrong.
Wow.
We're a team here.
I was going to praise you for the Ken Herbeck comment
we're
before. I loved it.
That's right.
I love the Ken Herbeck comment, but now forget that,
See, Dan, you should have started with, you should have opened with that. You could have won him over early. You came too late with the Ken Herbeck, and now you're out of luck.
Yeah. Listen, the New Jersey Devils are 4-1 in their past 5 games, and they just went into Florida and beat the Florida Panthers 4-1.
Yeah, you can't argue against that.
Okay, let's not say that they're not playing well.
It's a good win. They also lost 1-0 to the San Jose Sharks in their own building.
Yeah. They did.
What say you about that?
Shots in that game. Well, they had 44 shots in that game.
Well, they didn't score though, Dan.
They did not score. All right.
Should we give them like a participation trophy? Congratulations, 44 shots.
I can honestly say no one's ever asked me how many shots I finished the year with.
That's right. Exactly.
All right.
They don't come with the notebook like this. Perry, how many shots did you have?
Nope.
Goals.
Vegas lost to Seattle.
Yeah.
Vegas lost to Seattle, too.
That's all right. Fair point. All right. Touche.
All right. Let's
Seattle a little better.
I think
than
you know the
San
top
Jose.
4. Yeah, they are much better. All right.
I
think you know the top 4.
Yeah,
Minnesota Wild, they got to be in there at 4. They lost to Chicago. They've been sitting on it. Oh, you don't like it? You don't like the top 4?
Well, I'm surprised that, I know that you just said the Panthers lost to the Devils. I get it. But, the Panthers are going to lose at some point a game. They had won a bunch in a row. They were on that long trip and everything. I just wouldn't take them out of the 2-hole yet, especially to a Canes team that I know they got a lot of shots against Utah, and I know you value the shot volume, but they did lose to Utah last night, and they did lose to the Avalanche. So, the Canes are playing great. I don't want to downgrade the Canes.
They just beat Vegas, too.
But Panthers at 2, Canes at 3, maybe the Wild, maybe even ahead of the Canes.
We count order of 1, 2, 3, 4. We don't go 1, 2, 2, 3. Yeah. We have to have a 4. So you can't have 2 teams at 2 or 2 teams at 3. There has to be a 4.
All right. So listen, I got it for you. The Jets is an easy one. That's a layup. And I'm not even going to give you any credit for that. Obviously, they're 1. You said it to me. You said it to me in the elevator the other night, coming out of the Garden. They're number 1.
Good.
We were in agreement. I think anybody can figure that one out. The number 2 for me is still the Panthers. I'll give you the Canes at 3 and the Wild at 4. Mark Parrish, would you like to weigh in here?
Yeah, no, I agree. I couldn't put Carolina in front of Florida. I can't do that. I can't argue. Against the Wild Carolina. I can't necessarily argue either that way. But yeah, I cannot put Carolina in front of the defending Stanley Cup Florida Panthers. Right now.
Coming off a loss in Utah last night too.
All right. I'm gonna take this. I'm not gonna agree with you, but I'm gonna understand.
All right.
That's good.
I will say the Carolina Hurricane. I know they had that stretch at home, but they've had pretty long Western trips too.
Yes, they have.
So gotta give them. I know Florida went to Finland, okay, so that's a little bit different as well. But there's two. They get these Western trips out early. That to me bodes really well for Carolina going forward. They're going to play a lot of Eastern time zone games here coming up.
Yeah, and the Carolina Hurricanes have been terrific. They've been dealing with. They don't have their number one goalie. Freddie Anderson's been out. Seth Jarvis has been out of the mix.
Is he their number one goalie?
Well, you know what I mean, though. He started the season. The numbers were great.
Yeah,
and then he was out of the mix. Marty Necas has been great. All right, I'm getting the signal. I'm getting the bat signal in my ear to shut up. So, Dan, maybe I'll see you at the Garden tonight for the Sharks and Rangers. And thank you for your efforts today. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
All right. So there you go. Enough of Dan Rose. We're going to talk more about the Winnipeg Jets. Why not? When you win 15 of your first 16, Kevin Sawyer, the Winnipeg Jets TV analyst, will join us to talk about their game tonight against the Bolts. That's next on First Shift.
Super 16 is presented by Enterprise. We're here to keep you moving forward, whether it's around the corner or around the world. Official partner of the NHL.
Let's take a look at the best starts in NHL history through the first 16 games. And right at the top of that list, the Winnipeg Jets, 15-1 to start this season. The 06-07 Sabres. I remember that team. They got off to a great start, 14-1-1. You can see the list right there. But the Jets are rolling. They're in Tampa tonight to take on the Lightning. And to talk a little bit more about the Winnipeg Jets is Kevin Sawyer, their TV analyst on the Jets broadcast. And Kevin, thanks so much for taking the time with us today. And I wanted to start. We got a chance to talk at Madison Square Garden the other night, and we got a chance to talk about the team and some of the things maybe behind the scenes, or just the things that we don't see on the ice that have helped this team be more focused and gotten off to the start they've gotten off to this year. Maybe share with the viewers a little bit some of the things that you've noticed over the last maybe year, 2 years even, that have brought these guys closer together.
Yeah, I mean, the easy thing to do here is to look at the success they're having this year and maybe assume that, wow, this success is coming from what they're doing this year. Of course, that's true. But to me, this goes back 2 years to September of 2022. Rick Bowness came to town, and he went to work on changing a culture for this team alongside with Scott Arniel, the associate coach at the time. And, when Rick Bowness missed time over the last couple of years due to illness and whatnot, it was Scott Arniel that took over. His winning percentage was over 700. And a lot of it was because the systems that we're seeing today were created from Scotty Arniel back in 2022. He's the mastermind behind the tactics behind all of this. So there's been no lag for this team coming into this season when it comes to how they want to play. They were the best defensive team last year, thanks a lot in large part to Scott Arniel and the way he had them playing without the puck. And so a continuation of a culture that, to be quite frank, if you go back 3 years, almost unrecognizable. The way that this team interacts with each other, the way that they care about each other, I see it every day. They hang out together. You walk into the locker room and it's like a beer league locker room. It's loud. They interact with one another. You can tell they like being at the rink. They like being with each other. And you can tell that they are buying into something bigger than themselves. And that's what it comes down to. If you want to win, you have to sacrifice your individual success for team success. And then it's no shock to see that individual success come after. I'll tell you this, a couple of guys that last week I was chatting with about like, hey, what's going on here? Why so much buy-in? And a couple different players told me that they knew that this was more than just a job for Scott Arniel. Scott Arniel was drafted by the Jets. He played for the Jets. He coached for the Moose. This is a lifestyle, and this is who Scott Arniel is. I think you're seeing that in the trust off the ice, in the locker room, and then success just continues right onto the sheet.
And I want to stay with the players there a little bit about that mindset. talking to some of the guys this summer, seeing them this summer, there seemed to be a little bit extra frustration, anger with how everything went last year in the playoffs. And I think you can see that in their play. There's an extra focus. There's a chip on their shoulder this year. Has there been a lot of conversation about that at all, or is kind of everybody taking it the same way and trying to turn the page?
You know, when we talk in training camp, the players felt more willing to talk a little bit about last year in the playoffs. But once the season started, they flipped the page. But there's no doubt in my mind, as you go on in life or as a hockey player or as a team, you gather tools, you gather lessons. And you know it. We've seen it so many times with Detroit, with Tampa, with teams that learn to win, even Florida going to the final before they can get to the top. You have to lose first. And I think that the Jets are recognizing how hard it is to be a good team in the playoffs, but to win, or in the regular season, but to win in the playoffs. So that is in the forefront of their mind. Winning your first 15 of your first 16 games is great. That's fantastic. But they understand that this is part of the process of something much bigger, and that is winning in the playoffs, which they have not really done in recent history. So yes, that is a huge motivation for this club. Connor Hellebuyck and Mark Scheifele both extended for 7 years, which kick in this year. And both of them explained why. It's because they want to win. They believe they can win here. Losing last year is just another step forward to trying to get to that promised land for this group.
I'll tell you, Kevin, there's so many things I want to talk about with the Jets because there's a lot of good stories. But I do want to get to Hellebuyck. I didn't want to kind of skip over that because my concern is this. Like, he played the 60 games, I think, in the regular season last year. He wasn't very good in the playoffs. I mean, listen, they just got kind of run over by the Avalanche. There's a lot of reasons. But at the end of the day, they lean on Hellebuyck. That game at the Garden the other night, they won 6-3. Yep. Everybody's talking about this great start. Hellebuyck made a number of good saves in that game to help them get that victory. Is there a point in time this year, particularly with the Four Nations, where he is going to be part of it for Team USA, that they're going to have to really look and kind of dial some of this workload back? Because right now, the schedule is every other day, and he's been the guy every other day. I would think they're going to have to think about that. What do you think?
That's a great question. I 100% agree. Where Connor Hellebuyck has played a ton of hockey in his career so far, and I think he's at his best when he's playing a lot. Eric Carmery is going to start tonight here in Tampa Bay. And for that reason, we're going to play the Stanley Cup champions in a couple of days. And you have to make sure that this is a condensed schedule for everybody because of this Four Nations. So making sure that you've gotten Connor Hellebuyck enough reps and yet still having him rested as well. That's a tricky one because if you ask Connor, he'll say, I want to play every single game. Wade Flaherty, the goaltending coach for the Winnipeg Jets, really has a nice problem on his hands where he has to kind of wrangle him in here a little bit. That's the trick. And Connor has a lot to do with it, has a lot of say as to when he's going to play, but I think we're going to see less workload than we've maybe seen over the last handful of years for him.
And I got to talk, I mean, as a Minnesotan, I have no choice. I've got to ask some questions about some Minnesotans on your team. And of two, of course, that I've enjoyed watching them turn into the players they are. I covered them at the state hockey tournament in Hermantown, Dylan Sandberg and Neil Pionk. Talk to me about how those two have come along and what kind of second pairing they are for you guys.
Yeah, I get asked a lot about maybe an unsung hero in this team. And for me, it's Dylan Sandberg, hands down. For me, he was a stable, rock-solid number 5 D-man, block shots, first pass, get up into play, but everybody does. But this year, the challenge for him is to now play with different forwards in front of him. So now he has to get the puck into the hands of guys like Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor. And he has to play against guys like Nikita Kucherov. So that's a totally different challenge. He has risen to the occasion and in spades where he's jumping at the right times. He's defending the same way that he has been, but even better. Neil Pionk and Dylan Sandberg have a home on the same lake in the summer. They hang out in the dock. They tell me they talk hockey all the time. Their wives know each other. They're great friends. And so I've asked them, is this some chemistry happening here that kind of explain the elevation of both of their games? And they said, for sure. Like, they like each other. They're comfortable with each other. They talk all the time away from the rink and, of course, during the game. So I think it has a lot to do with it. It's amazing as a hockey player, you would understand this, where when you're comfortable with your teammates, you're comfortable with your line mates, everything just, the doubt that may exist, if there is any, just seems to go away. There's that extra level of trust. These two guys have it for sure. They've both found another level to their game to start this year.
Speaking of another level, how about Cole Perfetti? It seems like he is now becoming more of the player they thought they were getting when they drafted him in the first round. It takes some time with these guys. Where do you see his game this year? It looks like it's elevated.
It is elevated. I talked to Cole today at the rink at length, actually, about maybe the areas of his game that have developed more. And what we all expect is the vision, the playmaking, and the points. And I think he's been excellent in that regard. He's a natural centerman that's playing on the wing. That's the right place for Cole. I think Vlad Namestnikov has brought out the best in Cole Perfetti. That whole line, along with Nikolai Ehlers, they're undersized. So they have to attack and get to the net in different ways. What I've seen from Cole Perfetti this year that I haven't seen in the past is a little bit more edge, more of a willingness to get to traffic, to win a 50-50 puck. And when you do that, you're going to get hit. And you know that you're going to pay a price. He's drawing more penalties. He's coming out of the corner with the puck more. He's going to the net more and in his own way. And even the other day, like he took a penalty against Logan Stankoven. So he took a reverse hit from Maverick Bourque. It was a dirty hit. It was probably a penalty shouldn't have been called. Perfetti took a penalty going after Logan Stankoven. And for me, that was kind of a chunk of flesh for a chunk of flesh. And the team rallied around it. They were okay with it. They killed the penalty off because they love what they're seeing from young Cole Perfetti. He's continuing on with his offensive playmaking ability. He's becoming more and more trustworthy defensively. And he's starting to play with a little bit more snap, a little bit more sandpaper, which I think you have to have if you're going to play in the top 6 in this league.
Well, the schedule, some people said the start of the season, the schedule was maybe a little bit soft. But, I mean, of late, you've had Colorado, Dallas, and they blew the doors off the Dallas Stars Saturday. I watched that game. You come into Madison Square Garden, you get a win over the Rangers. You can see here, I mean, you got 2 with the Florida Panthers, the Stanley Cup champions, then back-to-back with Pittsburgh and Nashville. I mean, the schedule is it's a little bit of a rough ride right now. I don't want to look ahead because you had a great game with Tampa up in Winnipeg, went 7-4. It was kind of a back-and-forth game. But those 2 games with the Florida Panthers should be real interesting with an old friend of Winnipeg, Paul Maurice.
Yeah, I think that everybody in the hockey world is going to tune in for this matchup where, as the season's gone on, you're right, the schedule was soft where they played a majority of their teams early on, non-playoff teams from last year. They've beaten 9 playoff teams to this point, and Dallas was healthy when Winnipeg beat them. And I'll tell you, that's the first time in the last couple of years I've seen Dallas look like an ordinary team. And it wasn't because they weren't sharp. It was because of what Winnipeg did to them. And the same was kind of true with the Rangers, where, man, there was a lot of open ice, soft ice in the offensive zone. It was just overwhelming for the Rangers in my mind, the 4 lines that the Winnipeg Jets have, the depth that they have and the way they roll their lines over. Most teams can't keep up. The Florida Panthers will be able to keep up. And I think the Jets defense will feel a different kind of pressure from that forecheck from that forward group as well. So as this season goes on, it's a historic start, but the challenges get harder and harder as we go in. And here's what I think is exciting. When I asked Scott Arniel or some of the players in the locker room about that, they want it. Yeah. They are not sitting back going, yeah, look how good we are. They're saying, what next? What do we need to next? And that's good teams want to do nothing more than beat good teams. Well, Florida's got this 1 year marked, and I think Winnipeg is looking forward to the challenge too.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the game tonight, the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Winnipeg Jets. Kevin, thanks so much for the time. We really appreciate it. We'll get you back on as the season goes on to kind of figure out and kind of stay abreast of what's going on because they're a good story right now.
They really are. They're a fun team to watch on a daily basis, and thanks for having me. I enjoy it anytime.
All right, Kevin Sawyer is a TV analyst on the Winnipeg Jets TV broadcast. Coming up, the Devils and Panthers, the second game of a back-to-back, both in South Florida. We'll see if the Panthers can get back on the right track. We'll talk about that next on First Shift. Well, I'll talk a little bit about a scheduling quirk. The Devils and Panthers played in South Florida on Tuesday. And here's the results. The Devils get the win in that one 4-1 as Markstrom was really good for the Devils. Spencer Knight was in goal for the Panthers. They're going to play again tonight, also in South Florida. So the Devils have had 3 days to sit around in the sun, which is probably nice for them.
You don't mind a long trip to Miami, but it is very interesting. Yeah,
you don't get that every day.
No,
right?
You don't. And the home and homes can be fun, but when you play them back to back and they're building the way, you can maybe get a little annoyed by that.
Yeah,
you get a little more sick, so it might get a little bit more heated. I can see maybe for some of those guys because you get a little tired of the home team's crowd. And, the same sounds, the same sirens.
Same stuff.
All that.
Well, they didn't hear too much siren the other night.
No, that's
true.
Only heard one.
Now, Spencer Knight, as I mentioned on Tuesday, there was also no Sam Bennett in the lineup, which makes the Florida Panthers a little bit of a different animal. Tonight, Bobrovsky will be back in goal. It'll be Jake Allen for the Devils. And then you talk about Bennett. I believe he is a game-time decision at this point. I'm not sure if he's going to go or not. And, again, when I see the Panthers without Sam Bennett, they're just a little softer to play against. I don't know if that's the right word because they're still Tkachuk and Barkov.
Yep.
They play a hard game. But Sam Bennett is kind of that guy that really can be a force physically whenever he wants to be. If he's not playing again, that's a plus for the Devils.
He's definitely the supercharger part of the engine, isn't he? I mean, he doesn't necessarily drive it. He's not the Tkachuk, like you said. But, boy, when he's in there, there's a little bit more punch to him.
Yes.
I mean, you can ask Marchand about that, what happened
That's
in the playoffs,
right. We saw that, yeah.
I mean, so, not saying to that level, obviously, during the regular season.
Yeah.
But still, he's that kind of player. When he's not on the ice, you don't have to worry about it.
Exactly.
You're not thinking about it. When you're playing a type of player like that, you have to be aware of him, too. You don't want to give him an opportunity where it's an easy layup and he could take a big hit. He could take advantage of you, any kind of liberties as well, because you know he's going to compete.
Yeah.
That's that alone. Like, put that aside. Like, just talk about the mental side where you know he is going to be out there competing. He's going to get to the hard areas. He's going to do whatever he thinks it takes for his team to win, and you take that piece away, well, the other team's just that much more comfortable on the ice against him.
Yeah, no question. And then you slide. I mean, Anton Lundell is a really good young player, but now you slide him into the 2-hole. It just gives a little less center depth as well. So we'll see if Bennett can go tonight. But interesting to see the Devils and Panthers back-to-back. Devils trying to get the sweep, which would be really impressive. For the Devils.
Yeah, and you talk about that team where they're looking to take a step. Their goal inside that room is the Stanley Cup. They added a couple of pieces that the couple that they thought they needed most.
So
they're going to Florida. Here's the measuring stick, guys. Hey, we think we're supposed to win the Stanley Cup. Well, this is who we got to beat to do it. They do it the first time. They go in and beat them a second time in their own building. The confidence that could give those Devils, it could be a fun. It's going to be a fun one to watch. Yeah. But I would love to see what would happen if New Jersey wins that game and kind of see where that changes the trajectory a little bit more. Because the confidence that'll give this young team would be incredible.
Yeah, it really would. And we'll see if we get round 2 of Brendan Dillon and Gadjevich. They had a nasty tilt the other night. So. Whew, that was old school.
Yeah.
That was a lot of punches. So Devils and Panthers. Coming up next, the Boston Bruins. They're going to be on the showcase here on Saturday afternoon against the Blues. They're back in action tonight against the Dallas Stars. We'll talk about the Bees next on First Shift. Coming up Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on the NHL Network. We got the NHL Network Showcase presented by BetMGM. It's the Blues visiting the Boston Bruins, second meeting in 5 days. 1 p.m. again Eastern Time on the NHL Network. I'll be with Mike Johnson for that one. Of course, local blackouts in Boston and St. Louis apply. But should be a good game Saturday. The Bruins are in action tonight against the Dallas Stars. They rallied to beat the Blues in St. Louis on Tuesday night, so they're looking to build on that. They got some bad news. Hampus Lindholm is going to be out for weeks.
Yeah.
So that's bad news for the Bruins, but a great goaltending matchup tonight. 2 great American young goalies, Jeremy Swayman, Jake Ottinger. The teams met a couple of weeks back in Boston. The Stars won 5-2. Casey DeSmith was in goal in that one, but we got the 2 younger Americans in this one.
And you talk about the tournament coming up,
Four Nations
tourney coming up.
Guys will be in the mix.
Thank you very much. Yeah, these 2 in the mix. And not to mention, you're just talking about 2 of the young up-and-coming, I shouldn't say up-and-coming, 2 of the superstar young superstar goaltenders.
They're making a lot of money.
Yeah, they're getting paid like superstars, so let's call them superstars.
Let's do that.
Because they are.
Yeah.
So whenever you get that head-to-head matchup, we always talk about Ovi and Crosby.
Yeah.
I think always the goaltender ones seem to kind of get overshadowed a little bit. they get just as excited to match each other. They whether they look at it as competition as their team, the Four Nations, or just a little bit of machismo and amongst themselves. You know, the game within a game, kind of owning another goaltender, which may come in handy against these two being in the East and West, maybe just somewhere down the line. So yeah, there's all kinds of reasons why I love this goaltending matchup, and I'm looking forward to watching just that alone, let alone the rest of the players and the rest of the skill in that game.
Yeah, so it should be a good one tonight, Bruins and Stars in Dallas. We got a little news from the league and the PA. Matt Irwin officially announces his retirement. You can see 461 career games, played his college hockey at UMass, and good on Matt Irwin. I mean, he had to fight and claw his way into the National Hockey League, got to play with a bunch of different teams, started out with San Jose, played in Boston, Nashville, and you know, he winds up his career with his official announcement on Thursday. So congratulations to Matt.
I love these kind of guys. Obviously, that they earn every single bit of
shift.
Every bit of it, just out of hard work, out of commitment, out of compete, starting in the summer, starting their work ethic and their preparation for the season and their work ethic towards the team. Those guys are all just the heart and soul kind of guys for the team. Those are the kind of guys that you step up and you want to win for.
Yeah, so congratulations on a great career to Matt Irwin. And hey, maybe we'll get him in here one of these days to talk a little bit about his the trials and tribulations of 11 NHL seasons. And one more note here. This tweet from Stefan Rosner, and it looks like Dakota Joshua, who underwent surgery to remove a cancerous tumor this summer after being diagnosed with testicular cancer, will make his season debut tonight against the Islanders. Took line rushes with Ratty and Höglander. Got paid this summer, too, 4 times $3.25 million. But listen, your money is great, but like your health is another thing, right?
Yeah,
and Dakota Joshua went through a lot. He is an important piece for the Vancouver Canucks. He's a big, strong forward. He gets those dirty areas. He brings them energy. Really glad to see he's healthy and back playing.
Yeah, and talk about how big of a lift that will be. Coming back from what he came through, can't commend him for any more. Coming back from something like that and the work that it must take, not only handling that kind of the cancer issue, but then the work of being into the NHL, playing in the NHL, what he's got to do to make sure he's ready for that. Obviously, the lift that he will bring that team, just that alone, let alone, like you said, his size, the confidence, the strength that he brings that Vancouver Canucks offense, that team.
Yeah.
You know,
he's a key role player.
Yeah.
And getting to the net, winning those battles, it's so important, as you know, right? And that's why one of the reasons the Canucks made a move last year and moved up the standings, and one of the reasons, you know, they'll hopefully get him back and they'll keep moving forward in the West. That's it, Perry. It's over. Go do NHL
Thanks,
now.
buddy. I will.
Go do NHL now. That's coming up next.
I got plenty more to say.
Yeah.